Hello, everybody. Welcome along. It is Q and A time. Strap yourself in. We put the call out a couple of days ago. I have loads of questions on that screen to answer. These have been really, really fun during close season. We put up a poll. Actually, I think the answer was kind of fortnightly. So we are going to try keep these going through the season because you guys just ask such brilliant questions, and it really does kind of get to the heart of what people want to hear talked about on the channel. So it's a really good research tool for me, and a couple of other things. We get to talk about a few non-football topics every time, and I can just chill out and relax. And look, I can leave 2 seconds silence. Just like that, because we're not in mega YouTube mode, speak really fast and get your message out really, really quick, which I do love and which I've practiced a lot, but it's kind of nice to just chill out, relax, and relax your mind and float downstream. Right, let's get into this. David, what do you think Derby will need to finish in the playoffs, and do you think it's possible that could happen? Yes, it is possible that Derby could finish in the playoffs. They had an excellent end to the season and a real good bounce under John Eustace after a bit of an iffy start. Eustace, I think, is very good. Derby at championship level have generally, before the collapse under Mel Morris, been a challenger, haven't they? More towards the top of the league. And obviously, we know what happened, and the double points deduction and relegation down to League One, and the club changing ownership, and they're just kind of resetting back to their level, which was, frankly, playoffs. I saw Derby in the playoffs against Fulham. I think it was just the once they got in since I've been doing this. They were in there against Hull not too long before that as well. We're talking like 15, 16, and then 17, 18. Potentially, I think I've got the right seasons there. In terms of what they need, I think they've got the manager, they've got the infrastructure and the size and the stadium and the support and all of that kind of stuff. There's things that will happen outside of Derby County that they need as well, i.e. you need help from the middle order. And I remember talking to Callum Fowler a couple of weeks ago in terms of League One, where he's pretty expert on that. We spoke about Leyton Orient, and Leyton Orient got in the playoffs last year. They were brilliant, but it kind of needed Bolton and Peterborough and Barnsley and Huddersfield to all kind of cock it up a little bit and leave the door open. I suppose, to give a good championship example, we had a Luton versus Coventry playoff final a couple of years ago when Norwich and Watford were year one parachute teams languishing down in the middle of the table. So Derby would need help from the likes of, looking at my iPad right here, Coventry, Middlesbrough, Leicester, depending on points deductions, Norwich, Sheffield United, Southampton, Ipswich, maybe like the likes of Watford, West Brom, Wrexham, etc. You need lots of them to not get in the playoffs. It sounds fairly straightforward, but I think if it goes with the money, then Derby won't get in the playoffs, will they? Because you'd have the 4 parachute teams in there, and others will presumably be able to do more PSR-wise. And then it's just, I've always been a bit chippy when people talk about luck. But luck is a thing. Luck's always there, good and bad. And when I talk about luck, I almost believe in the kind of cycle of you do good work, and then you get some good luck. And because you've done good work, you take advantage of the good luck, which means you do more good work, which means you get more good luck. And I remember getting really irate with someone calling Ipswich lucky when they got promoted. And probably if they'd worded it better, I would have, not flown off the handle quite so much. But this idea that the only reason they've been promoted was because of luck. But if you actually say that in a more nuanced, less jealous way, it's often a case of, can you get your lucky breaks, i.e. injuries, refereeing decision, order of fixture list, good start, individual things in matches going your way, and then can you start to ride it out and get on a wave of momentum? And for the likes of Derby to be in the playoffs, you kind of need those things to line up, don't you? But as I say, good start. Get in and around it early in the season. Get some good feeling. That stadium will fill up, won't it? And as I always say in the Championship, there's been no mid-table the last couple of seasons, has there? We've had high tides at the bottom and the top four sucking points out and taking them all off everybody. So, absolutely no reason whatsoever why Derby County couldn't do it with a fair wind and a little bit of help from elsewhere around the league, just opening up that door to let them in. Planet Bull, as of right now, judging off the business Leeds, Burnley and Sunderland have done, do you see at least one of them staying up in the Premier League? Oh, this is hard. I've done various bits and maybe I'm a bit scarred by Ipswich's appearance. I went on Just Joe, Leeds YouTuber. I went on his channel and someone commented in the live chat, every time Joe says something positive, Ben says something negative. And I'm not trying to be negative about the promoted team's chances in the Premier League. I'm just going off my lived experience of what happened to Ipswich. And, Leeds and Sunderland and Burnley aren't Ipswich. There'll be differences there. But it does feel like everything has to be online. I would rejig the wording of Planet Bull's question like that. He says at least one of them staying up. It does feel like we just take one at the moment. At most, one of them staying up. Sunderland is interesting, but then again, Ipswich were interesting to people last summer with, the jump up, kind of a surprise promotion. Same with Sunderland, really. They were in the middle of the table and then, they were never favourites at any point and just did absolutely brilliantly to get up into the playoffs and then to win the damn thing. I don't know. For some reason, hunch more than anything, you'd think Leeds would be favourite of the three. But hey, maybe. This is damning with faint praise because Luton were the best out of Burnley, Sheffield United, and Luton, and they were arguably, the outsiders there. Which could that work in Sunderland's favour? But there is absolutely no use being the best of the three if you're 15, 20 points below everybody, which is where it's been headed the last few seasons. And yeah, just for the good of English football, I really hope it's not like that and one of them does stay up and it starts to get more competitive because we got problems if not. Smash in Tom. Do you think there's any chance that Wednesday could stay up? Pedersen did the team's on the ball tactics and is likely to be a manager generally liked, unlike Rull. I hope I'm wrong saying this, but no, I don't think there's any chance that they can stay up looking at things right now. I'm recording on Wednesday night, so it sounds like the North Stand there is going to be closed as well. This is after the announcement that Danny Roll is going, after the announcement who the latest two, Akin Mayo and Callum Patterson go in, after Windass and Gassama and Masaba and name another 8 players, Ihekwa, Smith, there's tons of them gone. So as of right now, I just can't see any chance that they can stay up. It's not to say that couldn't change. I don't know. You'd need embargo lifted, some kind of sea change there and players coming in. But the next thing we're hearing is, July salary is not going to be paid on time. And we're now getting to the 31st of the month. It will be tomorrow. Maybe I'll put this out at the weekend and you might already know more than I do right now. But no, I really don't think there's any chance of Wednesday staying up. I think they could have done a great escape had Danny Roll stayed and a takeover happened reasonably, in the next 6-8 weeks, that sort of period. And, you might get some siege mentality and that type thing. But as of right now, no, I just don't see it. And speaking of siege mentality, it might, Pedersen might do all right. He might say, look, everyone's expecting to be bottom and to lose every single week, basically. So, let's fight and scrap and bloody some noses and upset a few teams, but not confident right now. And I'd love to be wrong about that because, lots of work went in getting them back into the Championship after, missed the Chan Series wins. They were relegated with a points deduction, weren't they? And I don't know. Feels like they'll be going back to League One and rebuilding all again. But hey, if that's with a new owner, that might be 1 step back or 3 steps back to take 5 steps forward. AJMK39, if you could select the 4 playoff teams now, great question, purely on viewing spectacle for some classic Sky Sports drama, who would it be and who would each play each other in the semi-finals? Okay, so I want it to be football-y and attacking. So I'm going to put Southampton under Will Still in there as one. Now I need some location, some dramatic location. Let's put Watford in there because the greatest ever playoff moment, Hog Deeney, happened at Watford, didn't it? So I've got Southampton and Watford. Want a surprise team in there. So let's go with one of the earlier questions. Let's put Derby in there. So Southampton, Watford, Derby. I want Ipswich as far away from it as possible. Let's put Birmingham in there because we're all expecting big things from them. So I've got Birmingham, Watford, Southampton and Derby. We will go, Southampton, Watford and Birmingham, Derby as my 2 semi-finals. How about that? Callum Hayes, do you think Morecambe will be able to, quote, do a Bury and start again as a fan-owned club? My local non-league side, Runcorn Linnets, are playing Bury in the 8th tier in a few weeks, up the Linnets. I haven't spoken about Morecambe on the channel, and my reference point for Morecambe is they were literally in the same division as my lot Ipswich in League One just a few seasons ago. In fact, the season that it was, the big hope, the game changer takeover had happened, loads of players had signed and Paul Cook was the manager. I think it was the first game of the season because Cole Stockton scored a couple. He had the season of his life, didn't he? And Morecambe and Ipswich were, compatriots on a level. You can say what you like about clubs' histories, but if you're on the same division, then you're colleagues. And then obviously a couple of seasons later, Morecambe down, where are they now? Into the National League. All kinds of problems. Ipswich obviously had a double promotion and went up to the Premier League and have banked 100 million quid TV money and are in receipt of a year 1 parachute payment this year. And Morecambe have got all of this bother. I'm not a massive expert. My understanding is you've got another owner playing weird games of brinksmanship and there's an interested party ready to buy it, but the kind of owners sort of blocking it. And it's the same thing we discussed with Chan Series for Wednesday. You kind of think, well, what are you gaining from doing that? Surely, if you don't want the club, do everything you can to make it of as high a value as possible, which is not these weird games of leaving stuff to the last minute and trying to, flex on local authorities and councils and the government and the Football League and all of that stuff. And, make a good asset that can be sold on. But yeah, it's very concerning for Morecambe and for the Morecambe fans. And you really don't want, I know doing a Bury, as Callum says in his question, doing a Bury is a solution, but, you'd rather bank the work that you'd done. And again, I reiterate, they were in League One a couple of seasons ago, and to drop down to whatever is 8th tier where Bury are at the moment is, it's better than nothing. It's better than being liquidated and going out of business, isn't it? But yeah, not the best. So good luck to Morecambe. And I mean, it's hard, isn't it? Because if you have a stubborn, I mean, let's not misgender these people. They're all blokes, aren't they? Stubborn, rich blokes. And in some ways who have had their egos dented by, you never get these ownership issues with clubs that succeed in, do you? It's always clubs that have kind of failed and struggled. And the egos of these people who are often very rich and successful, certainly in other fields, just drives them to do stupid, stubborn things. And that appears to be the case at Morecambe again. I could do more research on that and I could read up on that more. So, do feel free to correct me on anything I've said or add your detail in. But yeah, fingers crossed, we'll get sorted out. F Mogger VN7. So, who is your biggest dark horse this season? Any league? My biggest dark horse. Let's go to the Premier League to answer that. So, dark horse in the Premier League. Who could just finish really high up? I mean, we were raving about Fulham, Bournemouth and Brighton and Brentford last year. Not sure about Brentford with the manager change. Brighton wouldn't necessarily be a dark horse. Let's go for Bournemouth. It's my big dark horse. And where would Bournemouth have to be? The manager's really good, isn't he? Where would they have to be to justify a successful dark horse? Have to be 6th, I think. So let's go Bournemouth to finish in the top 6. Gary Allen 9912. What do you think is the best achievement within the Football League, Championship to League 2? I think Accrington being promoted to League 1 is a fairy tale storyline. Yeah, there was a few, and he mentions Luton's rise to the Premier League. That's definitely one. Coventry as well, their rise. They didn't make the Premier League though, so maybe Luton usurped them. But yeah, you've got to shout out these teams. And I always say it with absolute love, and it's a line I've nicked from Joe Fairs off the Blue Monday podcast, is that League One is where you get the meeting of ex-Premier League teams, so teams or clubs with Premier League infrastructure, and non-league infrastructures. And I do say it with absolute love that when Ipswich were in there, that's my reference point for a good, 3 seasons? 4, I think, in the end. They played Forest Green, played Morecambe, who we've just talking about, Accrington. They lost to a lot of these teams as well, Cheltenham. And you just got to tip your cap to these teams who are going toe-to-toe with Ipswich, Sheffield Wednesday, Derby, Birmingham, name big team that ends up down there. I do think, though, when they get to the Championship, that is so spectacular. So let's go for Burton or Yeovil. Maybe Yeovil. Yeovil in the Championship. I mean, wow. How about that? So, yeah, we'll say Yeovil is the biggest fairy tale there, getting up to the Championship. Saitamas Baldhead 1908. Would you say Norwich could win the Championship transfer market at the moment? Yeah, I would, actually. I think Norwich have had a really great transfer window, and I don't think it's finished yet. The only thing that would scupper it, I think, for everybody, and maybe we get to round 1 and they kick off as winners of the transfer window, and then maybe by the end of August, Josh Sargent has been sold and we have to temper it. But I think there's still an argument that Norwich could win the transfer window, even if Josh Sargent has been sold. Have they done Diallo? Yeah, I know that was close. Yeah, they have, haven't they? Diallo, Schlupp, Kvistgarden, Kovacevic, Medic, Molden, Darling, Grimshaw, Wright. I mean, absolutely sensational from Norwich. That's 9 in this window. Obviously, Borja Sainz, who was, I think, the best player in the Championship up until the ban, wasn't it? Got banned for gross misconduct, or whatever the terminology was for spitting in somebody's direction. So yeah, it's been really, really impressive. I mean, what you look for in terms of winning the transfer market is, lots of deals that look like you've got players for good value that are a good age that will A, improve your team and B, improve themselves. Do you know what? I don't mind a sale like Borja Sainz in that, because you're almost saying, well, look, we build stars. And I mean, that's a huge feather in Norwich's cap as well. That a guy who signed for no transfer fee, and by the way, please spread the message. I'm actually fed up of people thinking that free transfers are free. That's nothing to do with Norwich fans particularly, but I just constantly see it. Oh, we haven't spent any money yet. It's like, oh my God. Free transfers are not free. And sometimes, imagine this, they can cost more than someone you've paid a fee for. When you add in signing on fees, agents' fees, bonuses, and extra salary that is attached to that. But there you go, it's my little soapbox on that. So, yeah, I think either way around, they could still win it. Although Wrexham are now planting their flag in the ground. I think all three, actually. Charlton have had a good window. Birmingham have had a brilliant window as well. We'll see. There's still a long way to go. It's a whole month until the window closes. But right now, I'd definitely put Norwich up there. Jeppo1456. Will you ever do National League predictions? In a word, no. Not that I wouldn't want to, but we have our work cut out here, and I'd like to think anything we talk about on the channel, particularly as main videos, right, maybe in the Q&As on winging it to some extent, but fairly well researched on. And, we're coming up 10 years of covering the Championship. There's a lot of time spent doing that. And, to be able to do that for the National League, it would take an equal amount of time, I guess. And done plenty of time studying Premier League sides and League One as well, with Ipswich being in there. But no, not National League. Owen Woolno, 7654. Could Watford be the surprise package of the Championship next season with new signings, new manager, and an owner who's selling his other club to fully focus on Watford? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's difficult to call Watford a surprise package as such because, well, actually, let me just bring my favourite thing up, the history graph here on FootMob. And yeah, look, from 14-15, second Championship, Premier League, Premier League, Premier League, Premier League, Premier League, relegated. Second Championship, Premier League, 11th, 15th, 14th. And obviously the parachute payments, they've been a season without them. But generally, it's only been the last two seasons. Well, you could say the last three seasons, they've either been getting promoted from the Championship or in the Premier League for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 seasons in a row. So I suppose it's only a surprise on the basis that they've kind of hit the buffers over the last three seasons, haven't they, Watford? But what I always say about Watford, ever since we've covered them in the Championship, and you kind of look into their squad and you're like, oh my God, where did they get him? Spain, Peru, Uruguay, Bosnia, Antarctica, players from everywhere. And they do go on and do well. And I've mentioned, everyone says, oh, look, Brighton have done it again with João Pedro. It's like, well, no, Watford did it with João Pedro and then sold him on to Brighton, and Ismail Assar as well. And the lad Estupinian, where has he gone? It's like Bayern Munich or something like that, hasn't he? So, yeah, there's absolutely no reason Watford can't be... what word did he use? The surprise package. Well, look, you're probably right, Owen, that if people aren't expecting them to be challenging, and I don't think they'll be in many people's top sixes, will there, given the stagnation over the last 3 years, then, yeah, it would be a surprise, and, yeah, they absolutely can do it. John Deeney, will you do an EFL Fantasy League so your viewers can compete against you and Matt SB? Yes, John. And since you've asked that, I've got my backside into gear, and I should be able to tell you what. I think it's Bloom EFL is the code. But if that's wrong, I think I'm right about that. Just check in the community tab on the channel, and there's links. I've tweeted about it as well. We've got a league set up. So, yeah, go and get involved. Mel, NCFC 948. If you are, quote, all about the Championship, why spend so much time on other leagues? Aren't you concerned that you will dilute your brand? Um, Fair question. I don't think I've ever said I'm, quote, all about the Championship, because that would be a silly thing to say, because obviously I've lent into League One when Ipswich have been there, and also I've tried to keep up with teams that have been promoted from the Championship. Sometimes it's a bit heartbreaking that obviously the most comments and views and, friends, frankly, you make are happy football fans, ergo teams that are doing well in the Championship. And what happens to teams that do really well in the Championship? They get promoted and you lose them. So it's always been difficult knowing that each and every season, 6 teams out, 6 teams in, that's one quarter of the league, isn't it? So, I don't think I've ever said I'm all about the Championship for that reason. Why spend so much time on other leagues? I don't think, if you look proportionately, get someone to do it, add up every minute I talk on YouTube, it's probably 80%, 85% Championship. So, no, I think we can try our best. And I mean, the thing is that we put so much content down the channel now that if you don't want to watch any Premier League stuff, or if League One clips or whatever, whatever you just fancy talking about, then I think it's easy enough to skip that out. So diluting my brand, well, it's lovely that I've got a brand. And yeah, you could argue it might, if you believe in the evil empire of the algorithm here on this wonderful platform that we're on. But no, I'm not a slave to a brand or a algorithm or anything of that nature. I just want to talk about what I want to talk about. And if I've spent often years covering a particular club and they've finally found their way up, I'm not going to just stop talking about them because they're in a different division. VN's Jeff. Do you think the new government football regulator will make any meaningful difference to football in the UK? Could it be a bad thing? How would it be a bad thing? What if they enact stuff that is actually negative? I mean, that'd be typical of where we are, wouldn't it? We think the regulator's going to solve the problems and they actually make it worse. Not to get political, because we don't do politics on here, but I suppose if it's a government thing, then, sometimes they can make things worse. Although I always think with political things like that, it's so in the eye of the beholder, isn't it? That one person's problem is another person's solution, isn't it? And that's why nobody wants to be a politician, and half the people are screaming at you and half the people support you. It's completely binary, isn't it? Will they make any meaningful difference? I mean, what you potentially are going to have is very powerful, mainly American now, and obviously we've got the Saudi and the Abu Dhabi state ownership of Man City and Newcastle. Very, very powerful business and state leaders against the English government, really, which doesn't kind of smell good, does it? Can they all play together nicely? We've already spoken about football owners, even at the kind of Morecambe, Sheffield Wednesday level, being arrogant, egocentric, ruthless, type A, hyper successful and driven businessmen, women, mainly men, aren't they? Is that going to end well? Do they play well with others, those type people? I mean, look at Man City and the 115 charges against the powers that be. It's just, they're taking them all the way, aren't they? And I appreciate that's not necessarily the English government they're up against, but it's the Premier League and the governance of English football. So, yeah, it's a sobering thought that if that question plays out in the worst case scenario that Jeff is asking, they'll make no difference and actually make it worse. I don't really want to think about that. Harrison, PNE, what have been my thoughts on Preston's transfer business so far? Personally, I'm pleased with all the signings, but during pre-season we've been very poor, especially in the final third. Well, the first thing I'd say, Harrison, is never judge anything whatsoever on what happens in a pre-season friendly. I know people get hung up about them and the team hasn't been playing for ages and ages. And, that's all you've got to go off. I always remember, this is the example I always give. Mick McCarthy was Ipswich manager. They did the pre-season. Played away at Charlton last pre-season game. Charlton were in League One and Ipswich were in the Championship. And Charlton murdered Ipswich, like 5-1 or 6-1, possibly, something like that, 5-1, 6-1. And you're sitting there thinking, oh my God, we're going to get relegated. And then Ipswich won the first 5 games of the season. And first 4 or 5 games. Went on a silly run. Of blooming lucky in that run, I tell you. But, yeah. And I've always used that as an example of, it can mean absolutely nothing. So in terms of Preston ins, what have we got here? Iverson, Brady, Thompson, Valentin, Small, Jebison, Afia, and Vukcevic, who I know nothing about. That must be 3 days ago, it says here on film. I suppose one thing is they did so much of it earlier. I'd like to see Heckingbottom get a tune out of Dan Jebison. Sam Parkin was very high on Thierry Small, with his eyes on League One as well. So, not to be patronised into Preston, they're very Preston-y signings, aren't they? But I know they spent good money on Afia from Brighton, didn't they? So, yeah, look, they went early, seemed to fit the mould of Preston, and judging by the way they finished last season, could have gone on the last day, couldn't they? They're going to need to have an impact. Burley, where has almost the strikers gone in the EFL? Has only 2 last season got 20 goals in all EFL? Are they not performing, or has the goals spread out within the players of a said team? I think he's answered his own question there. So I do think, and changes in football, they happen very, very gradually. It's like if you're stood outside, you don't notice it getting dark, do you? And I always bring it back to Sir Alex Ferguson and Jose Mourinho. So I remember Ferguson was always trying to win the Champions League, wasn't he, with Man United? I remember him signing Veron, and the idea was that you went to one up front, and it was Veron and Van Nistelrooy. But Mourinho then just took that to a different level, because he would play this 4-3-3 type shape. He had Drogba, who was probably worth 1.5 players anyway, because he was so good, and Duff and Robin. And all of a sudden, it was like, well, the years and years we knew of 4-4-2 and Shearer and Sutton in the Premier League, and Cole and Beardsley and Cole and York and Sheringham and Solskjaer and Fowler and Collymore and Wright and Bergkamp and name whoever. That was all broken up, and all of a sudden it went, not only did it go from 2 players essentially to 3 or even 4 in a 4-2-3-1, you do get goals from the 10, both the wingers and the 9, and then all of a sudden in the 4-2-3-1, the 9, and obviously Drogba was the master of this, had to, be good up front on his own against, say, 2 centre-backs in a back 4 and punch holes and bring in the other players. So all of a sudden, it was the case. And my team, Ipswich, play this way, where the striker's not really judged on goals. It's about running, pressing, occupying centre-backs, pushing the line back to create space for the 3 behind. And that's just the way it's changed. So I think that's a big thing. No one in the Championship got 20 goals last season, and Peru got 4 in one game at one point in the second half of the season. I can't remember who that was against. Cardiff or something. So he padded his numbers beautifully there as well. But you've got to remember, it was only a few years ago we had, I did this on a video recently, we had 5 over 20. Mitro obviously got 43, but he was a complete ludicrous cheat code who should have been playing at a higher level. Solanke, I think, was in there. Carlin Grant. I'm trying to think who the other couple were. We had Tammy Pukki had a couple of golden seasons with Norwich, didn't he? So it's not completely over, but yeah, it's not been a vintage time, has it? DD Ricky, which other sports do you like? Did you watch the Wimbledon final? I swear I get asked this every Q&A about other sports. So this is so boring. My life is, at my age now, is so compartmentalized, and with football making up part of my job, that's pretty much it for sport for me. Because then I've got my own health that I need to look after, and then my family as well, and I've got a daughter. So you kind of go health, family, YouTube, which is football, and that is kind of my sports allowance, I guess. So I think I just have other interests. I'm quite interested in, lots of podcasts I listen to. I don't want to get labelled with the kind of male philosophy movement, but I do like Morgan Housel, the business guy. He does some, and he's supposedly talking about money, but a lot of it is just kind of life philosophy. And I think all of us deep down are trying to learn and trying to be a better person and figure out what to do. And just sometimes when you hear people explain in very clear language their thoughts, I find that appealing. So it's almost a bit of a sense. God, I had a Nintendo Wii at one point in my life and used to play computer, but any of you with parents, any of you who are parents with children, will know that takes up, your energy and your emotional energy. If you didn't know, I'm involved in a theatre show as well called That's So 90s. And that gives me a nice movement away from football as well. That's a 90s tribute, and I'm involved in the production of that. So check us out on socials and come and see the show. So what I'm saying is I've got enough outlets that sport is all covered just by football. I've got to admit, football is a bit all-consuming, studying it for YouTube as well. Pickard vs Kirk. This sounds very Star Trek. Do you have any guilty pleasures when it comes to music? Wow. So, yes, but I actually don't believe in guilty pleasures. I believe that if you enjoy something, that you should not feel guilty about it, even if other people think it's A, not fashionable, or B, just crap. So, God, what's the worst one? I remember when I was at journalism college in 2000, my mate, Ross, he got sent a free CD to review, and it was, you ready for this, Chris de Burgh, The Love Songs. And he went, oh, God, Ben, I can't do this. Can you do it? And he gave me the CD. And obviously I'm a piano player and whatnot. And I listened to this stuff. And Chris de Burgh is obviously like, in terms of, I don't know if any of you, I've reached the age now where I don't care whether anyone thinks I'm cool or not. I'm past that. But in objective terms, he's like the least cool musician possible with his big eyebrows and his kind of Lego haircut. And he did Lady in Red. And I listened to this and I'm like, the guy's playing piano and guitar, sings with a nice register, sings the harmonies, writes all the songs. It's obviously, that was the Love Songs compilation. Lots of kind of balladeering and stuff on there. But look, are any hipsters going to like it? No, but I listened to it and I'm like, I can see how this guy's had a big career and why he goes around Europe playing in big arenas and blooming sports stadiums and stuff. So I guess the most guilty pleasure I've ever had is, look it up, it's Chris de Burgh, The Love Songs, a compilation. I didn't pay for it, I promise. But yeah, I think the guy's talented, and I can see why he's sold a shed loads of records. I can't read that out. I think someone's just gone like that on the keyboard. Could I see Ipswich breaking the Championship points record if they make a few more signings? No. I think that record stays for a while. It's 106 points, isn't it, in terms of Championship rating under Steve Coppell, 2005, 6. I think I got my years right. So basically, to break that record, you have to be so good. And to be fair to Ipswich, if you look at the 96-point season they did a couple of years ago, they probably should have got 100. They slid, slided away at the end of the season, and could have easily picked up the 4 more points that they needed to get to 100. But you need another 7, to beat that record. I mean, as a fan, part of me is like, God, screw points records. Just be competitive and be up there with your parachute payments advantage. But, I mean, what even is that in terms of points per game to get to 107? I've got my phone here. I bet it's like 2.4 or something. Is it? Where's the calculator on your iPhone? 107 divide... Oh, I can't even type. 107 divide by 46. Yeah, 2.32 points per game. So you're pretty much... what is that? It's like 9. So hang on, sorry. 2, 6, 7 points every 3 games. Win-win draw all season, basically. Oh, that's just so hard. And yeah, I don't. Although the fact is, if someone does that, you wouldn't be sat there at the start of the season. I mean, although look at Birmingham in League One last year when we saw the business they were doing, and you're like, they're going to score a lot of points here. I think it would take something ridiculous like, I don't know, Tottenham. Tottenham got relegated from the Premier League. And you're like, oh my God, they're in the Championship and they're just going to ride it out and not sell all their players. And yeah, that would be where everyone would think, okay, the record's going to go this season. But Ipswich, no, I don't see it. Dexter CJ, do you think Wayne Rooney would do a job at Sheffield Wednesday? It's always hard to tell. Sarcasm. Is there sarcasm in that question? But no, I don't think any Championship club will be going near Wayne Rooney. Least of all, Sheffield Wednesday. I think it's going to be Henrik Pedersen, isn't it? Roaster like GS and then some numbers. Would you rather Norwich won the Premier League or Ipswich got relegated to the non-league? I mean, let's be pragmatic and answer a semi-silly question sensibly. I'd rather Norwich won the Premier League, obviously. I don't want Ipswich to go down to non-league. And, if Norwich won the Premier League, you'd have to hold your hands up and say, how on earth did you manage that? Unbelievable. And look, if they won the Premier League in their current incarnation, it'd be like Leicester winning it, wouldn't it? And you'd be like, well, fair play. That's the greatest story in football in decades and decades. And if the other way they would win it is if they got taken over by Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or something like that and had more money than God, and then it wouldn't be a surprise anyway. So I don't really do the Schadenfreude football fan type thing. I want my team to do well. I want people to be happy. As the great Ian Holloway once said, what fans don't understand is that at least one team in every game of football is not going to win. And fans just like their teams to win, don't they? So, yeah, Ipswich being relegated down to non-league would be horrible, that, wouldn't it? So, yeah, I'll have to go for Norwich winning the Premier League. JJ, BCFC, what are your top 5 derby games? That's a great question. So, obviously, I've got to put Ipswich, Norwich in there because even though I bloody hate it because Ipswich never win, that's the one that means the most to me. I have really enjoyed, and I think BCFC's Birmingham fan, I've really enjoyed Villa Birmingham. God, they were box office the season. I went to both of them. Grealish got punched by the fan on the pitch in one, and the other one was like 4-2. It was an incredible pair of derbies that. So I'll go for Villa and Birmingham. I've never been to Celtic Rangers, and I'll probably never be able to get a ticket, but that one always looks spectacular. Everyone around the world says, what are the two Argentine teams? River Plate and Boca Juniors, is that right? That looks pretty incredible. And then, Real Madrid and Barcelona. People get all triggered about, whether that's a derby or whatever, but it's a massive game, and I think that's the point of the question, isn't it? So, let's go with those 5. CG Gaming. Does pineapple go on pizza? I'll not be tribal about this and say it depends on your taste. If you like pineapple on pizza or don't, that's completely up to you. But my darling mother used to she used to buy a pizza base and make homemade pizza, and she used to make ham and pineapple. So in my upbringing, it's a big yes to pineapple on pizza. Deadpool WXM. If Wrexham, Birmingham, Blackpool, Sheffield United and Coventry win with all teams both to score, can you dye your hair to purple? That's going to be a hard no. I will not be dyeing my hair purple. I'm going to need a much better offer. It's going to involve big sums of money. I look like Billy Connolly, won't I, if I dye my hair purple? I'm going to need to be paid big style to do that. So, no, what's in it? What's in it for me, Deadpool? Baby J6, when will you start prediction La Liga? I'll say exactly the same thing I said about the National League. Just don't have the brain bandwidth there. CAFC Brands. Are Charlton staying up? I reckon they probably will. I'm a big fan of Nathan Jones, so that's a win. And they've been recruiting pretty well, haven't they? Completely overshadowed, obviously, by the... what is there no transfers here? On all the other clubs, it gives me transfers. Hang on. Have I got to dial Charlton up and not go through Championship? Why is it not giving me transfers for Charlton? That's very, very irritating. Anyway, I can probably pick them out. Kaminsky is new. Bell is new. Isn't it? I'm probably going to miss some out here. Rankin Costello. Charlie Kelman. How about that? The hot hand in League One last year. Isaac Alafe. I think they've paid a couple of mil for both of those. Rob Apter as well. I mean, look, there's an argument they've gone for the League One All-Stars, haven't they? But they've got a championship level manager, I think. So, I could very much see Charlton staying up if Jones is at it. Veg Boxman, what are your thoughts on Ipswich's keeper situation prior to Hladky departed today? I mean, sounds like you know by the sound of it. It's been an absolute disaster, hasn't it? So, Ipswich, it's kind of a bit of a lucky break, wasn't it? That Christian Walton got hurt at the start of the double promotion, or the championship part of the double promotion, and Vaclav Hladky went in and just played absolutely brilliantly. But then they didn't go with him in the Premier League. Obviously, the Muric signing didn't work out, and then Palmer came in. And there's just a bit of a sense you've just got to ride it out now and go with Palmer. That is where you are, but it's not been handled massively, massively well, has it? Wenlock, young team, a channel member, legend. Hi, Ben. I recall your relegation theory from a few years ago. Owners relegate clubs, chaos relegates clubs, size relegates clubs. And I also add in bad luck relegates clubs there. Do you think that still holds true? Where do you think the blame lies for Plymouth, Luton and Cardiff? Great question. So I must credit the great Harry from Bath, who, if you're a Blue Monday fan, used to be on the preview show with Rich. And he used to say owners relegate clubs. He also used to say size relegates clubs. And I kind of repurposed his idea, Harry, and added in chaos. To be fair, chaos normally comes from owners. So that's downstream of owners, because chaos is probably points deductions, manager sackings. I mean, look, you could get chaos just with a manager deciding to walk out and the best player getting injured, and that could be nothing to do with owners. But that's why we say bad luck as well. So I do think it still holds true. And I mean, look, it's a broad enough little suite of beliefs. I know Kieran Maguire has got a brilliant one about, I forget what it is, the 4 reasons why people buy football clubs. And if it's broad enough, you can kind of apply it to most clubs, can't you? But so in terms of Plymouth, I guess that's owners in chaos, isn't it? That the owners made a big mistake hiring Rooney, and the Rooney thing caused chaos, which meant that they had 2 managers across a season and were chasing their tail. There's a bit of size, I guess, as well with Plymouth at championship level. Luton, I think there's probably something else that we could throw in. I think Luton, sometimes momentum can relegate clubs. You know, when a club is just on a losing run for a couple of years and you get this all hell breaking loose. But perhaps that's owners in the main. Did they not spend wisely or not spend enough of the Premier League TV money and then the parachute money? And did they hold on to Rob Edwards for too long? I do think there's a certain amount of perfect storm and snowballing there. But with a relegation, there's always going to be a compounding of, you know, lots of different factors anyway. Cardiff is definitely owners, isn't it? Mr. Tan's been kind of running that in such a way that it was only going to take a bad season. And I suppose there's an element of luck with all of those teams last season, that it's a high tide again, and that Derby, Pompey and Oxford all stayed up and went on runs, and Hull went on a run as well. And, you know, you kind of left there marooned with 49 points. But yeah, it's always interesting to discuss. PNW Lion, am I a fan of spam? Can't say I am. And my views on Massimo Luongo, obviously, look, you're talking to a fan of a team that got a double promotion after being crap for 20 years. So pretty much any player in that team I'm a massive fan of. And let's be fair about it, with Massimo Luongo, it was never meant to be, was it? He kind of came in on a free transfer halfway through a League One season, and you're almost thinking, well, what difference is Massimo Luongo going to make? But in a very tight pattern of play, a lot of difference was the answer. And I think they wanted Jack Taylor then, and they didn't get him. And Luongo grabbed the shirt and took it and made a great partnership with Sam Morsey in central midfield and a great partnership with Leif Davis on the left wing. So I love Massimo Luongo. Is he a Ballon d'Or nominee? No, not anymore. But if he's put in a good situation to thrive with a good manager, which Alex Neil is, then yeah, I think he'd do well for Millwall. The Tony Hayes, what football team do I support and which football team do you hate? Well, probably only need to have watched the channel for about 5 minutes to know. I support Ipswich Town. And which football team do I hate? I answered this last time. I've kind of, and I don't want to disrespect anyone, I've kind of grown out hating football teams. I used to hate teams when I was younger, and the only correlation between all of those teams is they beat Ipswich. They were better than Ipswich. They got a upset result against Ipswich or something, and it's like, well, you know, I'm okay managing my emotions on that. Tony, another question. Which is your favourite football YouTuber apart from Matt SB? Look, I've got to put over all the ones that I've kind of worked with on the channel. So I've worked with Ben HD at times when we were all at Football 365. Conor McGilligan, obviously I've done bits and bobs with. Just Joe. I've done lots with Matt, obviously. And I should shout out Anir, who does Bristol City stuff, who's followed my channel for the longest time, is a good friend now. I'm probably missing out. Jack at Talk Norwich City, I'm a big fan of as well. There's so many good ones. Dana, Middlesbrough, Borough Breakdown. Yeah, some fantastic people who, are not traditional journalists, but I really enjoy consuming their work. Argyle lad, does Tom Cleverley get poached by January? No. I think he'll be loyal to Argyle. unless he is raving top of the table and, the 50 points up by January or more, whatever, 25 games at that point in League One. So, no, I think Cleverley will be there at Argyle for the long run. Fingers crossed. I think that's going to work out quite nicely. Egg Nigma. Your thoughts on West Ham changing their name to coincide with the 88th year of Spam's inception to West Spam United so they can pay this season's annual rent on the London Stadium? I don't have any thoughts on that. In your head, changed man, what are some of your favourite football away day stadiums? Do you think the Championship is the best league as far as endurance and unpredictably? Money helps but doesn't guarantee promotion. Yeah, nothing guarantees promotion. Nothing guarantees anything in competitive sport. That's the beauty of it, isn't it? It sure does help, though. Favourite away day stadiums? I think Main Road, Man City, was always my favourite. Villa Park, Elland Road, Bramall Lane, City Ground. I think they're probably my favourites, the grand old stadiums. Get stuck in fan channel. If you could go on holiday anywhere, where would you go? Ooh. Well, I'd want Enid and Shaylee with me. And this is a problem because Enid's 3 and Shaylee doesn't like to fly. See, I normally say south of France here. But if we can sedate Shaylee and put her on a helicopter or something, I don't know, some like Indonesian island. But I'd need like a local guide with me. Somewhere with great heat and, warmth to relax, but nice culture that I'm not used to. I've got to admit, some of the where they do those White Lotus shows look good, don't they? Ewan Williams, now that Wrexham are closing in on the sign of Nathan Broadhead for 7.5 million, do you think this will certify Wrexham as a team safe from relegation? Yes, very much so, Ewan. I don't think Wrexham are going to be getting relegated. They've had a really good couple of weeks in terms of transfer window with, who have they done? Thomason, Hardy, O'Brien, Kachache, or however you pronounce it, and now probably Broadhead. Did I mention Windass? I think I mentioned all of them that have been done recently. So yeah, I think you're okay there if you're a Wrexham fan on relegation. UTOFTB something. Do you think the media are highlighting the Wednesday and Morecambe situation enough? Or do you think because they're outside the Premier, they don't seem to care? That's a difficult one. I get it. I get the reflexive sympathy for Morecambe and Wednesday. The media have a responsibility to report this, but they also have a fiduciary responsibility to their own shareholders and viewers and stakeholders that they've got to make as much money as they can. And this will sound horrible, but I mean, even take the two stories. Reporting about Sheffield Wednesday will generate 10 times more interest than reporting about Morecambe, sadly. And reporting about Liverpool will generate 10 times more interest than reporting about Sheffield Wednesday. So it's about getting the balance. I talk loads about Sheffield Wednesday, but to me, it's kind of the biggest story in the Championship at the moment. And I've said nothing about Morecambe other than in this question and answer session right now. So I'd be a hypocrite if I had a pop at the the media, the non-Championship media for, not talking about Morecambe and Wednesday enough. And I suppose at the end of the day, the biggest problem is the owners of these clubs, and is it going to be solved? I realise, that you can go down this rabbit hole of, that's not going to make any difference. And then the nth degree of that is, we'll just do nothing then, shall we? I'm sure you've had those terrible arguments where people have gone, just won't bother then. And that never solves anything. So there's a balance to be struck. But I do respect the media's side of it, that they've got jobs to do. And I think that is definitely the place where local media really step up. And every time I do something on Sheffield Wednesday, it's that Rob Staten, not Staten guy, and Joe Cran at the Sheffield Star. So they're doing a great job there. And, you know, that's the real quiz, isn't it? The locality, the community, that fan base, they really need to be the most engaged people. And if you can drag the likes of me along, who's, you know, in Bedfordshire, who's an Ipswich fan, but concerned about Sheffield Wednesday and concerned about Morecambe, then that's very much worth doing. Right, let's bring this home. Lee Harrison, will I be looking at League One away shirts? Lee, I will not. I think we've probably got about enough time to go over the rest of the Championship home and away shirts and make a final call on that. I don't know whether we'll get to look at the Premier League ones either. So, yeah, apologies for that. If I had all the time in the world and another, 5x subscribers and we were making tons of money and I didn't have to edit my videos, then maybe I'd have the time to do it. I'd get someone to research it for me. Imagine that, hey? But where'd be the fun in that? Cara, last one is Matty Young, the best goalkeeper in the EFL after Cooper and Johansson. Matty Young. I assume if it's Cara, who's a good friend of the channel, that will be something to do with Sunderland. Will it? Let me do a quick little look up here. Matty Young. I mean, the answer is obviously I don't know if I'm not even familiar with the player. Matt Young? Free agent? No, that doesn't look like him. Matty. Oh, I can't even look him up. I wonder if he's down as like Matthew. This is a great part of the Q&A, isn't it? I'm talking about a player of Matthew Young. There we go. Salford City on loan, I bet, from Sunderland. There we go. So, I don't know. Good luck to him down at Salford with a class of 92 there. But, Mike Cooper's surely the guy. I think you've answered your own question in there. Is Johansson still young? I don't think he's young any longer. So, but yeah, Mike Cooper was elite, wasn't he? And look at James Trafford, the other brilliant goalkeeper in the Championship last season with the brilliant, surely the number one guys, just getting a move to Manchester City. How about that? Woof. Thank you, everybody. Just over an hour. We'll stick some of those out as clips as well. And I say this at the end of every Q&A for you absolute heroes who stay here. Thank you. Thank you so, so much. The idea that we've got to the point on the channel where I can literally send a 2-line message out and within 24 hours, there's some brilliant, thoughtful, interesting questions for me to answer and that you guys want to hear the results. And it's honestly, from a pure business point of view, it's great that I can get some clips as well. Like to completely pull back the curtain, this weekend I'm out with the 90s show on Friday and Saturday, and for me to be able to do this now and schedule some clips and hopefully they're interesting, keeps the channel ticking over while I'm busy with other bits and bobs, and then we can get back on Sunday. It's really, really humbling, and I really, really am so pleased that these have been a success and we are keeping it going. So next one in a couple of weeks. Thank you to everybody who asked questions. If for some reason your question didn't get answered, I should have done all of them. I apologise. And ask away on the next one. And I hope you've enjoyed the show, and we'll see for another Q&A in, so not next week, week after, back end of that week. And my God, the season will have started then. I'm sure the questions will be rough and ready by then. Some of you will have had good starts. Some of you will have had bad starts. It's all part of the wonderful rich tapestry. Hey, what we'll do, we'll try and do a little link up here for previous Q&As if you want to go back and watch that. And yeah, as I said, we'll see you for the next one.